It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Yo guys, welcome back. So today I'll be doing a trade breakdown of the trade we caught on the Euro USD this week. The high of the week, which we mainly focus on, and that is the one I'll be breaking down in this video right over here. Now let's get straight into it and waste no further time. So as you know that the market only does two things. It moves from internal to external liquidity. So we had an internal liquidity right over here on the EU. Firstly, we had this inverse fair value gap right over here. This fair value gap is supposed to be a bullish support the price upwards, but it was broken below, so it was inverse and the market came to retest it right over here, right, right over here. So we had a inverse fair value gap plus a fair value gap over here. So when these two overlap, when the fair value gap and the inverse fair value gap overlap, we then have what we call a BPR, balance price range, right over here. So this was our key level right over here, a fair value gap plus a inverse fair value gap, giving us a BPR right over there. So the market does two things. It moves from internal liquidity, which we had right over here, plus we moving towards a external liquidity right over here. That was on the EU. Now going on the GBP USD, we had the same thing right over here, but we did not have a inverse fair value gap right over here. But we had a fair value gap right over here, and we were targeting this low right over here because that was the external liquidity right over there. So right over here, this is what we had before the week, this new week opened right over here. We already knew that we had this in play, that the market was in this fair value gap, which was our key level. So we had already marked out our key levels before the week even started, okay? Same thing happened on the DXY. We had a fair value gap again right over here. So we had our key levels marked off, and now let's just drop down to our lower time frames and see what actually happened. Now before I move on, I want you to take a look at this candle which went into our key level. Can you see the differences between this candle? Let me just put on my demonstration stick right over here. Okay, this candle right over here was a precision swing candle right over here, which went into our key level. This candle right over here, which formed this high. You can see this was a bullish candle, this closed as a bearish candle. So take into consideration of this candle right over here. This is a precision swing point right over there. Now going down to my 4-hour time frame, I think I showed this in the previous video when I did the trade breakdown on the index try. Okay, we had intermarket sequential SMT right over here between Q4 and Q1. we had intermarket sequential SMT. Let me just go to my interest rates. You can see that on the interest rates, we took out this high over here, failing to do so on the Euro USD and GBP USD as well as on the DXY. So this was intermarket sequential SMT which we had on this high over here. I hope you took that into consideration. So let me just go ahead and remove this so that you know that we had a monthly cycle sequential SMT. Now before going further, I want to remove this fair value gap over here. So I have marked out the starting point of this fair value gap. So I want you to take a look at where this is our starting point right over there on our fair value gap. This was our starting point. So the reason why I marked out this price is that this price over here, you can see that this was a liquidity point over here, right over here. This was a liquidity point right over here. And the market went to take it out, entering our fair value gap right over here. Now where did the market stop inside the fair value gap? It stopped inside another fair value gap. It stopped inside another fair value gap right over here. Inside another fair value gap. And on the GU, we stopped right over here inside this 3 consecutive up close candles over here, which was our order block right over here. And the market stopped inside there, and the market just went to the downside. Right. So that is it. And then we had monthly sequential SMT plus this happening over there. I hope you took that into consideration as well. Now, going into this week, right over here, previous week, which we had, I'll be going down to my 1 hour time frame and dividing each day into its quarters. Each day into its quarters. So I can go ahead and delete this. I can go ahead and delete all of this. So let me just put on my weekly quarters. And make my lines accurate. Right over here. So going into this week, we can see that we had a high impact news on Monday. We had a high impact news on Monday. Right over here. And we had sequential SMT happening between Monday and Tuesday. Between Monday and Tuesday. Right over here. Monday's range was taken out by GU. On GU, failing to do so on EU. Right over here. So Monday formed the high of the week on EU, but this formed the high of the week right over here, and we took our trade right at this point right over here. So now let me just break down of what happened on Monday and what actually happened yesterday. You can see that yesterday we had sequential SMT again. You can see that we had sequential SMT as well over here. We took out this low right over here. This low was taken out. So we had sequential SMT right over here. And this was the original movement of the week right over here. You could have caught your trade right over here, held it down to the downside over here. Okay. Right over here. So we took out this high on Friday. This is a weekly cycle sequential SMT. Right over here on Monday and Tuesday, we had again a weekly cycle sequential SMT right over here. So let me just go and do a breakdown of what actually happened on Tuesday. So now going down to my daily quarters, I'll be using my 15-minute time frame. So I can go ahead and delete this one over here and over here. Add in my daily quarters. So right over here, we had sequential SMT happening between Q2 and Q3. Between Q2 and Q3. Right over here. Sequential SMT happening over here. And then we took our trade right over here at this order block right over here. Right over there. Took our entries right at this point. And then we held it to the downside. So this was sequential SMT on our daily quarters right over here between Q2 and Q3, between London session and New York session. Now breaking down, going down to the lower time frame and checking what happened inside Q3, inside New York session. What actually happened inside New York session is that we had this high over here was not taken out. Okay, I just marked out the wrong high right over here. Let me just project my lines correctly right over here. So let me just delete this one over here. This daily sequential SMT, because we already know that we had our daily sequential SMT in place. Now right over here we had a 90-minute cycle sequential SMT between Q3 and Q4, and that is what actually dropped the market to the downside right over there. And this was the first trade which I took last week on EU. This was the first trade which I took on EU, and that was the first trade. Yesterday I took no trades. Yesterday I think I took trades on the Dow Jones, but not on the Forex Traid. So I won't be breaking down this because I was not participating in this movement right away. I don't want to do a trade breakdown of things which I did not do. Okay, but I can do it, but let me just leave it for now. And I think we have come to a conclusion of what actually happened last week. So you could have entered your trade. This was the trade which you're supposed to catch right over there. But since I was only holding from my position which I took on Tuesday, I was in a safe area right over here, and the market just continued to the downside. The market just continued to the downside. So focus on this one trade per week, which is the one shot, one kill. You don't have to trade every day. You just need to take one trade, and that is all you need. And you can see how explosive this movement was to the downside. You would have gotten this one trade, only one, and this was the expansion of the week right over here. So that was basically it for this previous week, and I'll be seeing you again next week. So I hope you take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace out.